So, Levi, of course, the players and coaches get together to lead off media days for all the conferences, and the first of two today. Now, in contrast, the SEC takes an entire week to take the same number of teams,
Just need
16.
more, right?
Yeah. So that's the SEC's deal. So we'll have a full Monday through Friday of the SEC. So we can spotlight Vanderbilt and Kentucky and so forth, I guess. So anything since I believe you got a chance to hear Matt Campbell and
Yeah.
maybe some players today. Anything catch your ear? But as you primed me for earlier this afternoon, maybe we can't expect too much.
Yeah, unfortunately, Matt Campbell is the undisputed, no doubt king of coach speak. When he's talking in a presser, he will say a lot of things that sound very, very nice. In the end, it's not really saying a whole lot that's at least particularly interesting. Oh, like that's a little thing that they can take off. Or there's not. He is the master of not really doing of having these any sound bites that aren't him basically just saying how much he loves Iowa State. However, the few things I have been able to parse out he did bring up that he said it's interesting. There was a quote that I think it was Pete Thamel. I want to say he tweeted and saying that the quote was that Matt Campbell said his top 20 players took a pay cut to stay at Iowa State. Which on its face, there's one of two ways. If you know Matt Campbell, you know how he meant that. But if you don't know him, you're going to say, okay, Iowa State's poor. They can't afford to pay anybody or whatever, which I guess, yeah, sure. If you want to read it that way, you can. However, the context that Pete Thamel did not include with that is that he was saying that they all had opportunities to leave for more money. And so that was an interesting little tidbit there. He basically said that his top 20 guys all had chances to leave for more money. And I'd heard at least a few of them, and I'd heard the number attached to at least a few of them, which was pretty shocking. I mean, Rocco Becht is the obvious one. Ohio State and Tennessee both went after Rocco pretty hard. I know that. Dominique Orange, I know, fielded SEC offers and things like that. But it's interesting that like as soon as that quote came out, because all the Iowa State fans that know Campbell said he meant that like they had an opportunity to go someplace else and make more. Not that they literally like cut their NIL payments or whatever and cut those down, which is an absurdity. If they did that, they would just leave. But it's interesting though that's kind of part of the conversation because you talk about when coaches are talking about recruiting now, it's not just about who you can bring in through portal and through high school, but part of recruiting now is recruiting your own players to stay. Player retention is such a massive equation to this, and Iowa State has done a better job than almost anybody in the Power Five as far as keeping players around. They only went and got 8 transfers this offseason, which is about half as many as most teams did. And that's really just because of some graduated seniors and things like that. They didn't really hardly have anybody notable transfer out. I think the last starter that left Iowa State was Asheem Young after the 2020 season when he transferred to Ole Miss. I believe that was the last starter that transferred out. And he's done it. Matt Campbell's done a remarkable job of keeping guys and names. And, he's said it before in quotes too, but he reiterated today at media days that, they recruit guys that are there because they love playing football, that they're there to play the game of football. They're there to get better, maybe making an NFL career. But in the end, it's for Matt Campbell, the guys that they target a specific type of person, not just a player, but a specific type of person that fits their culture and fits what they want to do. And, if to put it this way is that Matt Campbell you'll never see Matt Campbell chase a recruit that is trying to just get the biggest check. If it came down to, for Jet Tamalo, which is this quarterback that just flipped to Alabama a few weeks ago, if it came down to, he would stay if Iowa State wrote a bigger check or whatever. There's no shot that Matt Campbell is writing that check. And even if they can, they're not going to, because immediately you are flagging yourself as that's just not the kind of person we're trying to recruit. And it's, it's not that they won't pay guys that are deserving because they've, come out and say that, it's a merit-based program. TJ Otzelberger for the basketball program did that as well and said that their revenue distribution and all that NIL stuff is much more based on merit at Iowa State. So, they're not gonna write freshmen, $500,000 checks. That's just not gonna happen. That's not how it works at Iowa State. And are they gonna miss out on some recruits because of that? Maybe. But for Matt Campbell, I know he's okay with that. He can live with that and live with himself, knowing that he didn't, bow down to essentially a teenager, trying to do something that is not in line with what he wants his football program to be about.